The original Spyro the Dragon trilogy for the PS1 were some of my favorite games from my childhood, and I still like to go back to them every now and then. And something that you may actually know, it's the fact that those games were actually localized and released in Japan, more specifically 1 and 2. And you may know these games for having very questionable changes compared to the American and European releases. I'm not gonna get a lot into all of the differences, since that deserves its own video. But to cut a long story short, one of the main weird changes they made to the Japanese versions of these two games were the camera. This type of camera was one that made the Japanese versions of the games very difficult to play with. It was basically a type of camera which didn't follow Spyro properly, being further from him than usual and making Spyro's movement a lot slower. Even when charging, his speed doesn't seem to change at all in this version. And the reason for this was because the Japanese market thought that the worlds were too big and will make the players confused on where they should go, which is something that I personally don't see at all, since Spyro levels aren't that big. You just have to figure out your way around how to get a certain point by using Spyro's abilities, such as gliding and using the super dash. And while in Spyro 2 you could change the camera at any moment, in Spyro 1 you were not able to do this, being forced to play the entire game like this. Another interesting change they made was the inclusion of a lot of signposts around the homeworlds and the levels themselves, giving the player all kinds of hints. But overall, these versions were strange, and are one of those cases of interesting Japanese versions of Western games that, again, deserve their own video. So maybe at some point I'll talk more in detail about them. But the topic I really wanted to talk about in this video is about the third game in the series, Spyro Year of the Dragon, arguably the best entry in the series. And also the only PS1 Spyro game that never saw a release in Japan. But the question is, did that version really ever exist at all? One of the main reasons why Spyro 3 was never released in Japan was because, unlike Crash Bandicoot, Spyro did poorly in Japan as a mascot. And also the infamous change of gameplay in the two previous games might have contributed to the fact that the third game was never released there. Again, the existence of a Japanese version of Spyro 3 ever being developed is not confirmed, since it's not a game that was even announced to begin with. There are no articles or press release of this game, so it can only be assumed it was never even developed at all. But it's also fair to think that it was an idea to, at some point, localize this game in Japan, just like they did with the previous two. So, what happened to the Japanese version of Spyro 3? Well, according to a user in a Spyro forum, there was going to be a Japanese version of Spyro 3, developed by Sugar and Rockets, which was a second-party development and production house owned by Sony Computer Entertainment Inc., created in 1997 and closed in 2000, with their most popular game being Intelligent Cube for the PS1. This user also said that they found a file for what was believed to be a demo or prototype of the game called Spyro3.L, and that they will try to make an ISO out of it, which, as you may already guess, never happened. This person also shared a couple pictures that were apparently related to this version of the game, one of them being the logo and another one being a poster promoting the game. Both the logo and poster look like they were made on Photoshop or some kind of cheap program, because rather than looking legit, they just look like hoaxes. It is also worth mentioning that using the Western design of the characters to promote the Japanese version of Spyro 3 would have been a bit weird, considering they made both Spyro 1 and 2 look like he was from an anime. So why not keeping that for the third game? So yeah, these images are most likely just fake. But this user also shared an alleged intro of the Japanese version of the game, which comes in the form of a YouTube video. But said video is currently unavailable, so that's also a dead end. This post is from more than 10 years ago at this point, so I'm just gonna go ahead and assume there's no way to reach out to this user nowadays about the topic. Overall, I think that a Japanese version of Spyro 3 would have been interesting to see. I mean, just imagine trying to play that game with the awful camera of 1 and 2, which I know it's not the best idea, But I also think it's an interesting take on the game if you feel like playing it in a different way than what you're used to. So what do you think? Will you have been interested in a Japanese version of Spyro 3? Or are you glad that it never got localized and quote-unquote ruined like the other two games? Let me know in the comments. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this topic because it seemed like an interesting non-confirmed console game. And believe me, there's plenty of games out there that aren't confirmed if they ever existed at all. So I might talk about more of them in the future. With that said, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. It means a lot to me, and if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe so I can keep making it. And also let me know in the comments if there's a game you would like me to cover in the future. With that said, take care and I'll see you next time.